Guys, look at this delicious piece of cake. Chocolate cake with a mint buttercream frosting. Oh, we are going to make some delicious today.
Well, howdy folks. Welcome back to Texas Cooking Today. On this episode, we're going to be making a chocolate cake. Now folks, let me tell you something. Everybody needs in their recipe file a basic chocolate cake recipe. And that's what this is going to be. This is going to be your basic chocolate cake recipe. This is my base recipe, and it's something that you can build on with other ingredients at other times, you know, when you're experimenting. But you need that first basic cake recipe to start with, right? And that's what this is. No frills, no fancies, just plain chocolate cake. And then what we're going to do is fix up a very, very special mint buttercream frosting. Now, if you're not big on mint, I get that, but I like mint because it goes well with chocolate. If you want to make yours a vanilla buttercream or a rum buttercream or a butterscotch buttercream or a cocoa buttercream, you can make it into anything you want. It's just what flavorant you put into it. So I'm going to teach you how to whip up buttercream frosting. So guys, this is really good. It's really tasty. And this one is a lot of fun. Now for those of you who are watching the cook along tutorial, this particular episode is going to be an extension of some of what you've already learned. We've been talking about leavenings and how they work, how baking soda releases carbon dioxide into some of our baked goods, and how when we don't have enough acid, we sometimes add another ingredient to create that reaction, releasing carbon dioxide. Well guys, we're going to go to the next step above that today. This is the next level in how to use leavenings. So we're going to do two reactions on our leavenings. One that releases when we first mix it, and the next one once it starts heating up. And I'll talk to you about how all of that works. So guys, I tell you what, let's get up in the kitchen and let's make this most delicious chocolate cake with a mint buttercream frosting. Come on, let's go. Okay guys, look at that wonderful goodies that we have to bake with. Now let's go over all the ingredients. If you need an ingredients list on this, get your pen and paper and get ready to write this down. All right? First off, 2 cups of flour. Just a plain all-purpose flour works good on this one, guys. Back here, I have 1.5 sticks of butter, and that would be 3/4 of a cup of butter. Now what we're going to do with the butter, and the reason I have it in this, is I'm going to melt it. I'm just going to put it in the microwave, melt it off, and once it's melted, this thing is ready to assemble. I also have milk, 1 cup, 2 eggs, 1.5 cup granulated sugar. If you're wondering why my sugar's a little bit tan color, it's because I use a cane sugar that's not fully processed, it's kind of raw. My flavorants, of course this is a chocolate cake, so it takes cocoa. I have 6 tablespoons of cocoa powder. Guys, there is the secret ingredient, and it is amazing what this one little ground up 1/2 teaspoon of powder will do. This is cinnamon. Now in a chocolate cake, for some odd reason, cinnamon works. It works in the strangest way, but you can't use much of it. 1/2 teaspoon to this cake is more than enough, and it will come through in the most remarkable way. It blends with the flavor of cocoa so well, it's unbelievable. So you really need to try it once if you've never done that. We also have in our flavorants a little bit of salt, tiny, tiny bit. 1/8 to 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt, no more than that, guys. Now we mentioned before our leavenings. We have baking soda and baking powder. What's the difference? Okay, baking soda, as we taught in the cooking recipes, baking soda releases its carbon dioxide once. You mix it, when it comes in contact with that acid in a liquid state, boom, it releases carbon dioxide and gives whatever you put it into a structure. It helps it to rise and keeps it from being flat and hard, okay? So we use baking powder that way now, or baking soda that way. Baking powder, a little bit different. Baking powder already has an agent to react with the baking soda in it. So it's baking soda with a reactive acid already in it. But it doesn't have just one. This is double acting baking powder. Double acting powder has two reacting agents. One that reacts when you first mix it and it starts producing carbon dioxide right then. And then the second one, after it has been mixed, releases in the oven as it comes up in temperature. When it reaches a certain target temperature, it causes the carbon dioxide to release again. So we get two releases of carbon dioxide and it pushes up better. And that's what gives cakes that light, fluffy structure. Leavenings like this cannot be interchanged. You can't use baking soda in exchange for baking powder, and you can't use baking powder where there was baking soda, guys. Recipes like this are very carefully worked out, and you need a certain amount of each for certain reasons at a certain time. So until you get really good at baking and using your leavenings, don't try changing things up too much, all right? Wonderful recipe here. We're also making buttercream frosting. I have a stick of butter down here, and that's 1/2 cup of butter. And we're going to be using 2 cups of confectioner's sugar. That's that powdered sugar, guys. All right, and I have my mint extract. I'm going to use 1 teaspoon of my mint extract to make a good, strong, minty, sweet frosting. I will not be putting any food dye in mine. I'm not planning on turning it green. You can in yours if you want, but I think a lot of times when I think of mint, I think of the color white. It's that cool, clean taste, and I think white represents it better than green. So this will be a white frosting on a beautiful chocolate cake. Guys, this is really easy to do. You're going to be so surprised when you see how little work goes into this particular chocolate cake. I'll tell you what, let's get on with this. One of the things we're going to have to do is take your cake pan. You can use any pan that you want. I'm using a 13 by 9, 2-inch deep glass pan. You can use a metal or glass or ceramic or any kind of pan you want, all right? You can use a skillet to cook this up in if you wanted. You can use muffins. If you want muffin cups, that's fine. That works good with this cake recipe. It's very versatile. What we're going to do on this pan, I have a little bit of flour in here. I'm going to take some butter. We're going to rub it all over it. And we're going to flour it. I want to teach you what's called the greasing and flour technique. So if you've never done that, it's time to learn it. Here I have my mixing bowl for the cake. The buttercream is going to be made after the cake has been removed from the oven and has time to cool. So it's going to be hours from now before I make my buttercream. But you need to know, even though it's going to be hours before I make that buttercream, the butter is already sitting out. It's coming up in temperature, and I'm about to put it in the bowl it's going to be worked in. There we go. So I'm going to be mixing mine with a power mixer. You can do this by hand with just a simple whisk. The whisk will do this whole recipe, frosting and cake, all right? I'll tell you what, let's get on with making this. It's so easy, come on. All right, guys, the very first thing that we need to do to make this cake, I want to take this butter, I'm just going to cut it down into smaller pieces. All this will do is just help it melt a little quicker and easier in the microwave. I don't want this to get too hot as it melts, but I have to get it melted, okay? You can do this over the stove also, just do it over a low heat until it all is turned to liquid.
The first thing I do whenever I'm going to be making a cake like this or any other baked recipe is I combine my dry ingredients. Guys, there's several ways of doing this. You can use a sifter. Here's a very old sifter that I used when I was younger. I don't really use sifters much anymore, and there's reasons behind it. Something else you can use instead of a sifter, you can use a strainer. You just put your flour in this and tap it, and it does the same sifting action, okay? And you can tap it with a spoon or a metal handle or a knife. You can just like that, and the stuff comes right through it. That works really, really well. And then the other method, and this is the one I use, I simply use a whisk, like this. So first, I'm going to place my flour into the bowl. I'm actually going to mix this in. And the next thing I want to mix in are going to be my leavenings. So I want to start. Let's get this up here. Let's get this right down over that flour. That was the baking soda. This is the baking powder. Remember, the baking powder is the one that has multiple agents in it already mixed together. Baking soda is simply the sodium bicarbonate. Here's our salt, gently sprinkled over. I'm going to give those a stir, just a light stir, a little bit of that cinnamon, our cocoa, and stir that. Now, by the way, guys, you know when you go to the store and you buy a cake mix, okay, so you'll know, once I add the sugar to this, that's a cake mix. Okay, that's all they're giving you is what we just sat here and mixed together. So you're paying that extra money for somebody to go ahead and do this right here for you. And the thing of it is then they're putting other stuff in there to keep this from caking, and also to keep the ingredients from reacting with each other, those leavenings. Cake mix right there, and we didn't pay extra for it. And let's face it, guys, whenever you get a cake mix, what does it ask you for? It asks you for some milk, eggs, and butter, right? Okay, so that's all there is to that. So before we get on with combining the rest of this, the next thing I need to do is, number one, let's get our oven set, 350 degrees. Let's get that thing preheated. And we are now going to grease and flour our pan. I have just a small piece of butter here. That's all you're going to need, is about a tablespoon of butter. Let's take the butter, mine just broke apart, and rub it across this dish. Okay? And the idea, guys, is you want to get the most thorough coating possible. You don't want any of the glass to not have butter on it. And some folks like to use the spray-on coatings. And if I use that, well, what kind of a teacher would I be? Now, guys, when it comes to flouring and greasing and flouring, what you do is first you coat it with whatever you're going to grease it with. Now, you can use, for this, you can use shortening, you can use lard, you can use tallow, you can use butter fat, whatever kind of fat you want to rub across there, that's fine. The whole idea here is you're just creating a layer that simply releases from the cake. Now, the next thing we do is we put some flour in this. We'll dump all of that in there. And it won't need all of that, but it's helpful when you're working it out. So you see how I'm working this around the sides? Do I make a little mess? Well, sure. Guess what? The world will get over it. And here's the thing. The flour will tell you any place that you missed, okay? As you can see, we have some spots where I do not have flour sticking. If you run into a situation like that, take your butter, just re-rub those spots, okay? It's not going to be a big deal. So basically, it's like you can do touch-ups wherever needed. Now, I'm going to dump the rest of this out, and I'm going to have my ready floured pan, okay? I very gently tapped that to release any extra flour. All right, guys, our pan is greased and floured and ready to go. Now we just got to finish mixing up our batter. Now, guys, we need to crack our eggs. Something I want to mention, whenever you're going to crack your eggs, don't crack it directly into the cake mix, okay? You can make a mistake. You just want to bust that egg open into another spot And this also gives you the opportunity to smell the egg. If it smells foul, you know not to use it. So there we have all of our ingredients ready to go together. The oven has been preheating, guys. I'm going to give it 10 more minutes to finish preheating, and then I'll mix this. Now the reason I'm not in a rush to mix this, again, I don't mind my butter cooling some to room temperature. I want my oven to preheat all the way. And also, the reason I don't get it all pre-mixed and just let it set is because the minute the carbon dioxide reaction on this begins, it pretty much needs to go ahead and hit the pan, be leveled off in the pan, and then go into the oven, because that thing is going to immediately start doing what it does. And we want it to go through a regular smooth cycle. And if I break that cycle by pre-mixing the cake and then letting it just sit there before I bake it, I'm not doing myself or that cake a favor, okay? It's time for us to mix our ingredients together, guys. Now, something that you want to make sure you have handy, keep a rubber spatula handy so that we can scrape out our bowls as we go. Now, the first thing I want to do is to get my butter right down in here. So I'm just going to pour it on in. I'll remove any excess I can from that bowl. Put our eggs in there. Put the milk in. Break those 2 egg yolks, guys. And let's get busy just mixing it all together. Now, I would like to give a word of forewarning. When it comes to making baked goods, guys, and you're using egg, okay, don't give the bowl, the mixer, the whisk, anything to the kids or anybody else to lick clean, okay, because you're running serious risk. The reason being is you have egg in this. You put raw egg in there that was coming up in temperature as it sat there waiting for the oven to heat, okay? You don't need that risk. Don't risk it. Once that egg is baked up in the oven, regardless, it's going to be fine. But right now, it doesn't make any sense to put your health at risk. And yes, I know it is very tempting to want to have a taste at this point. It really is, but try to refrain, okay? Now what I'm doing is I'm breaking it free from the sides and bottom just to make sure that there were no ingredients that got left out in that mix. All I have to do now, guys, get it into my pan, get that pan down in the oven, and we're ready to go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour all of this in just one big old pile right in the middle here. You didn't think it was going to be that easy, did you? So now what I'm going to do is just kind of work this until it fits my pan, okay? You know, so I'm working from the center out. Very gently, just work towards the corners. So now what I'm trying to do, I've got some high spots and I'm just going to pull those over to where it's a little bit more shallow. So from here, all I have to do is just get this into my oven. What I'm doing here is redistributing it, getting it to level itself. Okay, looky there. Now it's nice and level, ready to hit the oven. It's going to go in there. This usually takes around 30 minutes, guys. But what we're going to do is check it with a toothpick. We insert a toothpick into it, pull it out, and if that toothpick comes out clean, it's done. If the toothpick has liquid or batter on it, then it needs more cooking. It's just that simple. But we start at 30 minutes. All right, there it is. Now we need to set that timer for 30 minutes, guys. This is important. You don't want to forget it and have it burn. And a simple timer is such an easy thing to use. If you don't have a timer, remember you've got a timer. They have them built in on phones. They're built into the microwave oven. Okay, there's timers all around you, so use your timers. Okay guys, this just came out of the oven. Now I told you about that toothpick test. You insert a toothpick in it, like so, pull that thing out, and if there's liquid or batter on there, then you need to go back in with it, okay? But if it comes out clean like that, then you have a fully cooked cake. Do these little holes matter? Well, not if you're going to frost it. This is going to fall just slightly. Let it do its own thing, but make sure it's on a cooling rack, and it'll be just fine, guys. In a little bit, your chocolate cake is going to be ready to cut up after we frost it off with that buttercream. Okay guys, it is now time for us to make some buttercream frosting. 1/2 cup of butter, 2 cups of powdered sugar. I have some extract here. Now, on your extract, you get to make your buttercream whatever flavor you want to make it. So you go with whichever one you want. I want to recommend 1 teaspoon of whichever flavor that you would like to go with. I'm going to use mint, in fact peppermint. Also, a lot of people put vanilla in theirs. You can use butter rum flavor. You know, they make an extract that's that flavor. It's really good. You can use almond, all kinds. So just use whatever you'd like. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to use my whisk. And you can do this with a hand whisk also. But you see how the butter has become soft? It's room temperature now. So I'm going to use my whisk and I am going to cream this butter. Now guys, what is creaming? That's when we do 2 things to the butter. A, we soften it. Now right now it's already pretty soft because it's room temperature. The other thing is we work air into it and make it softer and kind of lighter and very spreadable. And what I want to do here is I want to cream the butter at first for just a moment, and after about a minute of that, then I'm going to start working in that sugar, small amounts at a time on low speed, and when I get all of the sugar worked in, then we'll speed it up and cream it again. Now guys, let's get over here and take a closer look at what's going on. As you can see, it's working really nice. This will not take long. Now guys, whenever you're working with a mixer like this, you're occasionally going to have to loosen up that butter or whatever else that you're mixing on the bowl, okay? And that way it all gets mixed together. If you'll notice, that's gotten a little lighter in color. It has increased in volume slightly overall. And what I'm going to do now, we're going to start working in some of that sugar. Now I have a small measuring scoop that I'm just going to gently work small amounts in with. You have to be careful. If you go too fast on that, it's going to kick it out. So as you can see, we'll speed it up just for a moment. You get it light, fluffed again, and then back down to slower speed. More of the sugar. And I just gently work it in this way, a little bit at a time. Okay guys, if you'll notice, I didn't run that really very long at all. It's only been just a couple of minutes all combined, you know, the slow running, getting everything worked in. Now the butter, this buttercream, is starting to take on a very thick, heavy complex to it. And that's very normal when you're doing a buttercream that's made with confectioner's sugar. The confectioner's sugar thickens it, even though that butter was very soft and almost soupy at room temperature. Now this, the flavor is fantastic. So what I'm going to do, turning that back on, I'm going to put in my extract. Now guys, sometimes if it has a tendency to be a bit thick, you can add milk or cream, and not very much of it, just the tiniest amount at a time. 1 teaspoon. Now what the cream is going to do is that's going to lighten it. It's going to make it want to flow. It'll improve the viscosity of it, basically, is what it's doing. So here we go. Alright guys, that has now been 1 more minute. Let's take a look at our texture. What I do is I just pull it off to the side, get it down on its side. And what I need to do now is I actually need to feel it. So I'm going to pull some up. I'm going to feel it in between my fingers and see how it flows. Okay. Now I'm going to wash my hands, and they're clean now. But I'm not going to put this back down in there. Actually, the texture is wonderful. I'm testing the flavor, which is beautiful. Sharp, buttery, but it's not so minty that it stings, okay? Now if you don't like a robust mint flavor, you want a light mint flavor, go with like a 1/2 teaspoon. Alright guys, that's it. We are done. buttercream frosting is made. Now you might be thinking, but gosh, that looks like a lot of work if I have to do it by hand. Well, it's more work, of course, than doing it by machine, yes, but it's not that bad, guys. I've done it by hand myself, and trust me, if you're young and you have strong arms, you'll get over it. And if you're older, then find somebody that's young with strong arms, give them a couple of dollars and tell them to get at it. Now we have this ready to go onto our cake. Let's move over there and get at it. Okay guys, we're here with the cake. I have a spatula. Well, this is actually for cake work is what it's designed for, but this up here is my spatula. I'm going to use a paper towel and I'm just going to work down the edge around this cake on the pan. And the whole idea there is just so I have kind of a cleaned up looking glass. Now guys, if there's a little of this left on here, don't lose sleep over it. You're just trying to knock off the majority of it. That way your glass kind of looks clean, okay? And that's all we're trying to do there, is just make it look neat. The next thing, I'm going to put all of my buttercream right on top of this. There we go. Now I'm just going to work it around a bit. I'm going to work it down around to the corners a little. This is very simple. Now, if you were expecting me to turn this cake out, guess what? We're going to be doing that in another video. This one is just about how to do a very simple frosted chocolate cake. There we go. So isn't that easy? Wasn't that much to it, was there? So guys, next time you're in a quandary about how to do a cake, a birthday cake, or something like that, don't be. Just break this one out, make it, and I guarantee you, you're going to have wow factor going on all over the place, okay? Now these are actually made specifically for this. I don't know if I like it any better, but it does seem to glide around the edges a little easier. Of course, being that it's a long blade, it gives you a nice flat surface when you need it. All right, now, again, with just a little bit of cleanup, guys. It never hurts to just break out a paper towel and go around things. Don't worry about anything else. Just smooth it up is all you have to do. Now, it's not perfect by any means. Of course, you can take yours and just keep working with it until you get it as perfect and pretty as you would like it. So there we have it, guys. One beautiful chocolate cake with a buttercream mint frosting on it. Now, I can't wait to cut this up and enjoy it. So as you can see, if you're just looking for a basic birthday cake, something that's easy to throw together at a moment's notice, this one isn't too hard to do. The hardest part's really just kind of the wait time for the cake to cool down. And of course, if you just make sure you cook your cake in advance, then when it comes time to put that frosting on it, you're ready to go. There it is, guys. I hope you enjoy. Well, there it is, guys. As you can see, this is not one of those difficult dishes. Look at that. Up close view, guys. Look very, very closely at the structure on the cake. How well it rose up, how well it all worked out. Just beautiful. That lovely, lovely buttercream on top. It's a mint buttercream frosting on top of chocolate. And anybody knows mint and chocolate just go together. Oh, man. Okay, first off, wonderful basic chocolate cake recipe. It's perfect structure, perfect moisture content, great for a lot of stuff, guys. Cling to this one. That mint buttercream. You put that over the top of chocolate, and when you chew the two together, it forms this beautiful marriage, this harmony of flavors. And then it pops with that little tiny bite of cinnamon in the background. It just comes through, and it's wonderful. Fantastic, guys. Right now, my mouth is just exploding with flavors. It's unbelievable, and it's so tasty. It's so moist, delicious. And guys, I would like to say thank you very much for watching Texas Cooking Today in this episode. Thank you to my subscribers, and if you haven't subscribed, if you would, please do so. Please click like. It's going to help me a whole lot when it comes to how people find me in a search engine. If you want, leave a question down below, and I'll do my very best to give you an answer. Also, love to see comments. Guys, thank you very much for that. And if you would do one last thing for me, please, just have a good day. Bye-bye. Hey, dude.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, not too bad. Shooting video at the moment. Can I give you a call back in a few?
Oh, yeah, no problem.
So, I'll be done probably in about 30 minutes here.
Not a problem. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye-bye.